The next thing is support your outcome. You figure out what your outcome determinative issues are. Then you figure out what your themes are that support reaching the right outcome in your outcome determinative issues. And then you combine that with visual evidence that's tied to the most credible testimony. Let me tell you what I mean by that. You combine your visual aids and use them to control the juror's focus, because they will attach to something that, and if you can keep your visual aids in front of them, the longer you can keep them on the stand, the aids, the longer you can keep the visual imagery in front of them, the better off you are. Because it becomes more indelible, obviously, more memorable, and easier to recall at the vital time. Now, you enhance it's a combination here. You look at your visual evidence, whether it's an x-ray or whether it's something you created, whatever it is, you look at your visual evidence and say, which witness lends the most credibility to this graphic? Then you look at it from the other side. Because in many of these you'll have several different witnesses that you can choose from in terms of who should I use to put this on first, to introduce first. You can use it with several different witnesses, but who creates that first impression with this particular piece of evidence? Then you look at the other side and say, which graphics, which visual evidence will be most helpful to enhance this witness's testimony or to aid this witness in their testimony? You know, we have witnesses who are absolutely terrible. And so, there's nothing you can do to change that. We take our plaintiffs as we find them. And sometimes you just get stuck with bad witnesses. So what you can do with a witness is you can make life easier for them by giving them graphics which help them explain, which reminds them of what their testimony is and helps them tell the story that they're on the stand to tell. The same thing with expert witnesses. Jurors love educators. So when I get an educator on the stand, then I want to get him or her off the stand, and I want to get them down on the chalkboard, and I want to get them pointing and explaining and taking the graphics that I have and explaining what every single thing means. And I want them to be down there in a position of an educator. When they leave the stand, they seem to lose they don't lose the position of a witness, but they add the position of an educator, if you can get them down. So if I can get Ralph Lilly off the stand, Ralph's a great witness, but if I can get Ralph off the stand and get him at a chalkboard or get him up at a piece of demonstrative evidence to explain what this means and then what this means and what this means, he's now a great witness and an educator. And we all like to learn especially about medical things. So you try to enhance your witness with a graphic, and you try to optimize your graphic with the witness. So you put that combination together. The next thing is there's availability is one of the most powerful of all the biases, and all I think Kahneman has like a whole chapter on it. What availability says is this: the jury will focus in deliberation where the spotlight was placed during trial. Availability is a huge advantage to the plaintiff because we get to decide where the spotlight is placed. So we should put our spotlight on the liability of the defendant and on the damages of the plaintiff. Now, today, things are tougher than they used to be in the 70s and 80s when we tried these cases in terms of responsibility of the plaintiff. Tort reform has raised the suspicion that every plaintiff is faking. You know, come on, you're faking that coma. Sit up. Seriously, we got some tort reformers in Texas who would do exactly that, which is why I'm doing mass torts in New York and Massachusetts now. But we get to decide where the spotlight is placed. So you remember when you're putting your evidence together that you won't focus. This is a rifle shot. The trial now is very carefully placed sniper shots. The shotgun approach doesn't work. Just let's throw everything up against the wall and see what sticks. That doesn't work. So you want to get focused. You're always trying 3 cases for damages. I always think in terms of compared to what. The condition of my client today is this compared to what? Compared to what this client was before the injury. And then you're also trying what is the future of this client going to be like. So you're trying 3 damages cases. But just putting a client on and talking about their condition today it doesn't have near the impact as it has if you prove the complete case of who this person was before and what they could do before and what their life was all about before and what their capabilities and what their hopes and dreams and aspirations were before. Then you compare them to where they are now and how many of those hopes and dreams and aspirations don't exist anymore, and then you talk about the life care plan of what they're going to be like, what their life's going to be like for the remainder of their life expectancy. This is just by way of just showing some injuries to this fella. He had all kinds of injuries, but they were questioning his head injury. And so they said, no, he didn't have it. We'll give you the fractures. Guy was hit by an 18-wheeler. And literally, he was hit by the 18-wheeler. He's a passenger in a vehicle where the bumper of the 18-wheeler caves in the door where he's sitting on the passenger side. So I brought up all these others to show the impact, but then here's the before and after. And the thing in the middle, I did a hologram. Here, I'll show you. We did a hologram of his facial injuries. And we said, okay, and it was 60 inches. It was 5 feet tall and 40 inches wide, this hologram. And it's 3D. You just look right into it. And I walked in, the defense lawyer walked in and he said, damn, I didn't think you were going to spend your entire fee on one exhibit. And I said, no, my fee just went up way more than the cost of this exhibit. So, but how can you look at that? How can you look at that man's face? How can you look at every bone in his face literally being fractured and think that, oh, by the way, the bumper of that truck just may have impacted his brain ever so slightly as well? You see, that's proof. That's evidence. I include this youngster in here just because I admire him so much. He's one of my all-time favorite clients. But this is how you project your client. You don't ever project your client with sympathy. You project your client with this. And this is not a brain injury case, but this is a paraplegia case. But this is how you project your client. You project your client with courage. This is a young man who's doing the very best he can with what he has left to work with. And that's always been my favorite picture for how we should be setting our clients up and selling our clients to. Before and after, here's a young man who's brain injured. This was him before, bright-eyed kid with a very bright future. And then we hear about a 3 on the Glasgow Coma Scale, but we need to see what a 3 on the Glasgow Coma Scale looks like. This is a young man who's 3 on the Glasgow Coma Scale. I know you're familiar with the Glasgow Coma Scale. It runs from 3 to 15. At 15, you're phasing in and out of cognizance. I think it's at 8 where you can be the claims manager of a major insurance company. And obviously at 3, you can be governor of the state of Texas. In fact, I think it's become a job requirement. Okay, here, I'm showing you these by saying sometimes you don't have to run out and spend a bunch of money. These photos tell the story. Start with your family photos, okay? Here's a young man. This was a case I had in Utah, and this young man is brain injured, obviously. That's a picture of him in the upper left-hand corner before. The picture in the lower left-hand corner is the young man and his brother before. One of the most compelling piece of evidence I've ever put on the stand, ever, was the parents of this young man. It was a Radio Shack manager in Utah, and he had recorded this, and you talk about a powerful piece of evidence. 2 years after this picture down in the lower left-hand corner was taken, I have a picture of the younger brother, the baby brother, reading a storybook to the brain injured. I mean, it made me want to cry to see it. If you thought I cried, you should have seen the defense lawyer. But it's one of the most compelling pieces of evidence I've ever seen.